So welcome, everybody. We want to welcome the lovable Jesse Bless from the Masonic Lodge, Greg Siskin. Zach New is joining us from Joseph Hall. I don't know where Aaron is today. I'm sure he's doing something very important.
We all are sick.
Very important. And you see, everybody at Joseph Hall is a handsome man. That's all you need to know. The whole firm is probably about handsome and beautiful people. It's like a model show, like Zoolander. But intelligent. It was what Zoolander came on last night. It was in my mind. I'm sorry. Zoolander killed. It's a great movie. Hey, great to be with everybody today. We have a couple things that are going on. We want to update real quick. Now, Zach, we're doing a couple EB5 cases. We actually had 3 EB5 cases. One's already gone. And Zach, you on the verge of getting ready. Now, tell us about the EB5 case in Massachusetts.
Yeah, so we had 3 EB5 cases moving forward. One was for people who had adjustments pending, one who had 526s pending, and then one who had, I guess, their cases stuck in consular processing. The case in Massachusetts is the one for the folks who are stuck in consular processing right now. We've been seeing some great movement on that case. I think we're down to 2 folks who haven't gotten interviews. One person just hasn't submitted documents at all, and then one person we're told is documentarily qualified and should be scheduled for an interview in January. So just about finished up with that one.
And the government had filed a motion to dismiss in that case, hadn't they?
Right. Yep, we responded, and then we're scheduled for a hearing in about 2 weeks here. So we're probably gonna just push that off, say, hey, things are moving forward and we don't need to.
I think the hearing was right after Thanksgiving. Like, we need to prepare over Thanksgiving for it.
Monday morning, right after Thanksgiving.
No, Judge, no.
No, we're fine. Don't worry about it. We can have a longer Thanksgiving weekend. Don't worry about it.
It's funny. We have an immigration judge here in Atlanta. I had one for a long time. And if you got a hearing on a Friday afternoon, you knew you were going to win. Because that dude was out of the office at 2 o'clock.
Not Judge Cassidy.
It was Cassidy, man. If you had a 1 o'clock,
he was like a hanging judge.
Oh no, well, you need to call me. You had a 1 o'clock with Cassidy on a Friday. You were good. You were good. Well, I guess it was good either way. You could be quick either way. So I want to talk, Zach, about the last EB5 case, which is the 526 case. We've actually had a little movement on our name. The plaintiff has been requested to respond to an RFE. An RFE, by the way, which can be responded to in 87 seconds. If it took that long, apparently this individual had forgotten to sign his subscription agreement with the EB5 group. That was it. Everything else was good. So hopefully he's responded to that, and we're in good shape there. And but in that case, that EB5 case is different from the rest because we're going after the government here on the issue of why they're taking cases out of order. So I was able to speak to government counsel yesterday and let her know that the court had set, and we had agreed to a series of briefings, but the court had noted that if after discovery we did not believe we could file for summary judgment, then the government could file for summary judgment, and their date to do so is by February 1st. I alerted counsel yesterday that we would not be filing for summary judgment. We can't file for summary judgment. We don't have and we're going to need what's called Rule 56E discovery. Now, Rule 56E discovery is only occurring after the government files a motion for summary judgment. So we're going to alert the court that we will not be filing for summary judgment and that the government will. I asked the government, we'd love to have you file early. We know you don't have to. We'd love to have you do it. And we'll see if she does. But once the government files for summary judgment on or before February 1, we will then file a motion for Rule 56E discovery. That will then have to be briefed out. Now, I believe we will win that because what we got from the government, and is garbage. It's just a whole bunch of press releases and junk that's completely useless. I also alerted the government to the fact that we have had let's call them, Jesse, you'll appreciate this, an anonymous benefactor somehow, apparently from a Telegram group on EB5s, pulled up a whole bunch of receipt numbers and then put them in the system and put up the log algorithm and found out that immigration is literally taking cases from whatever date they want to. There's like no rhyme or reason to the order. And we're not talking, they did a sample of 20 cases. They did a sample of almost 1,000 cases. So let's just call this a representative sample. And so I told the government, I said, we got this. And you might want to talk to your client about this because we got the goods. Now we're going to get discovery. So that's kind of where we are on that. Unfortunately, it's taking longer than we'd like. But, the reality is our plaintiffs are on top of mind at the government. Named plaintiffs already been identified and sent an RFE to finalize this case. We would like everything to get done, obviously, but if people that aren't mooted out by getting approved, we're going to push forward on that discovery. This is actually the government keeps thinking it's similar to it's kind of like a similar case that was done recently, but that kind of fell off the rails a little bit. I told her this one's not falling off the rails, so that's kind of where we are. The process is slow sometimes. All right, that's our EB5 update. Now we've got Jesse. We got this really great kind of truth, justice, and American way case. Let's call it Uniting for Ukraine. You feel like Superman. It is the right thing to do for the right people at the right time. This doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, it's a great.
The government doesn't agree with us, apparently.
It's a great case. It's we filed the case as a class action for Ukrainian refugees who entered the United States pursuant to one of the few laws passed in 2022 that provided them with a work authorization incident to status, meaning as soon as they arrived, and also, they can get an employment authorization document, an EAD, without having to pay for one. And the letter of the law is on our side and on the side of the class members, and I think, I know the government agrees with us, but we just cannot get them to sign a settlement agreement. And we also don't have a judge who's holding their feet to the fire, unfortunately. There's just a lot of, I don't know, I have no problem saying there's just a lot of bullshit around what USCIS is trying to pull and what, I think if you talk, they're represented by the Department of Justice where I used to be employed. And I think sometimes you just have a really bad client and you have to do your best job for them. But sooner or later, you can't do it anymore. And I think it's coming to that point. In my opinion, I don't know that, but in my opinion, because it's going to be put up or shut up time. And they're going to have to put something down on paper. And I will have no problem whatsoever filing something with the court that basically calls both people, the court and USCIS out, because right now people are suffering. I mean, I don't have to explain the economy to people. It's not exactly easy if you have a job right now, and it must suck if you don't have one and you just left everything in your home country. So it's really actually emotionally frustrating is what I'll say, because I'm so invested and I should not be, but I know that we should be helping people sooner. And I have to bear some of that responsibility as counsel for the class because I'm not doing my job and it just drives me nuts.
Oh, wait a second. You should not be. You are doing a great job.
No.
Here, I will identify our problem for our folks. The government asked for more time because we believed they were acting in good faith.
Correct.
That's what good lawyers do. All right. You don't have to distrust everything because we know how right we are. And they know how right we are.
Yeah.
And we believe they were acting in good faith. That has not turned out to be true.
Right. We have given them a deadline, which is coming up in
Friday, I believe. Tick freaking tock.
Right.
No, they have a deadline tomorrow.
Oh, tomorrow. That's right. It was Wednesday.
But
yeah.
We've told them that we're done as far as the settlement discussions if they can't get it together by this deadline. So
yeah,
one way or the other, something's going to happen, and there'll be some more news on this case in a couple of days, which we can't talk about at this moment, but we will be talking about it next week, hopefully.
Yes, Yes, we will.
I mean, it just goes to show you, though, that I think sometimes when it doesn't have to be this hard, and I think that we, as much as the agency wants to get out there and tell us that we should be talking to them before we sue, we've played the game to a T, their game.
Yes.
And now we have to play a new game because that game didn't work, and it's not working. It drives me nuts because it should be. This is the one case where it should work.
This is the one case where they say, "Oh, you're right. You know what? Let's fix this because we're not the Trump administration.
Yeah.
We're going to do what's right." It's bad enough that they fight us on stuff that they politically should be agreeing us on, like DV stuff, like EB stuff. But the law literally isn't even up for interpretation.
They're not just defying immigration lawyers; they're defying Congress here.
Yeah,
I mean, this is Congress specifically only a few months ago told them they needed to do this. So that's they may not like the fact, like us, but they're defying Congress by not settling this.
Well, maybe we should haul them into a subcommittee hearing about this in the Senate, because I don't think the House is going to be having any immigration committees holding their feet to the fire. But
we're going to talk about politics in a minute.
We are in a second. All right. So the next thing I want to talk about is, I think, a big deal to a lot of our immigration lawyer friends and a lot of my clients, a lot of our clients. The Immigration Service has intentionally stopped working on 601A waivers. I mean, I mean, is that an overstatement? You don't go from 6 months to 30 months by accident. That's not an accident. That's intentional.
4 months.
4 months. Well, it's been a long time since it was 4 months, but
no, it's 2019.
Under Trump, it was 6 months. For goodness sakes.
2019.
And to go to 30 months, I mean, the process time is doubled under Biden. So this is intentional. This is either or terrible mismanagement, but it can be both. So we're going to be we are currently onboarding. We've reduced our fee for this case because we want to bring just a trainload of cases all at one time in front of a federal court judge and say, this is not a standard, we're taking too long on my case, mandamus. This is a institutionally purposeful delay and family separation. Institutionally purposeful. It's their only solution to this lawsuit should be, yes, sir, we'll get the cases done in 5 months. Thank you, sir. That should be their response to this lawsuit. And we're going to have to make them do it.
The other thing is, I mean, let's not hide the ball, right? If you want to hide behind, we don't have staff and we have all this, okay, shoot them out, shoot the applicants out an EAD card and deferred action, so they don't have to live under the threat of being removed and not having to provide for their families. I mean, this goes to a common theme here, which is we have we have people who are of working age and talent and ability with families, because that's a prerequisite. Right. And they should be, if you're going to keep them, in a state of, anxiety and just limbo for 3 years, let them work, for Christ's sakes. I mean, you've already vetted them because you know who they are. It take you 2 seconds. And, if you want to charge them, you shouldn't, but go for it. But let them work and let them not live. I know, because I've had clients too. You have clients too. I have a 601A client who found me from the brief stint I had in private practice before joining AILA, who were like, yeah, remember that 601A you filed for me? Yeah, well, my husband really, really was struggling. He really needs to work. Is there anything you can do? And I said, yeah, there is something I can do. And that's what we're going to have to do. But it doesn't. This is another one where it shouldn't be that hard.
No, it literally makes no sense to me. And keep in mind, one of the criteria for a 601A waiver is extreme hardship to a U.S. citizen, spouse, or parent. Somebody is already suffering by just the idea somebody be gone for a while, and now you're making it worse. And this is insane. It's insane.
It brings up a really good point, and I use this one particular client because it's so fresh in my mind. When they filed, they had a very small child, and as the record, the agency is going to, and what their response is going to be, well, the record's stale, So we need updated.
Whose fault was that?
We need no, exactly. So it's really a win-win for the agency, because by the time you get to look at these stale records that are based on a finding that you have to find hardship, you're gonna kill your adjudicators on the line, because they're gonna have to send out RFEs and play this ridiculous game. Get to work. I mean, this is a priority.
I look so forward, Jesse, to us arguing this case. I don't care what judge we get. I really don't care.
No.
I think this is gross malfeasance. Just gross.
Well, I mean, it really just, I mean, if I were the judge, I always do that, right? If I were the judge, though, I would just say, you created this program. You didn't have to, but you did. You created it. And everything you're doing is undermining. Because you meant to help these families, and you're killing them.
All I can tell you is sign up. If you're an immigration lawyer, you've got clients, go to the IMMPact Litigation website, and you'll see this onboarding right now. We are going to torch this, guys. We're going to torch the government on this. This is going to be one I'm really, 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 really looking forward to. By the way, we are also onboarding for advanced parole and EAD delays. I had somebody call me yesterday, just a client, say, I need to get an advanced parole. I've got a meeting out of the country in like 6 months, and can I apply now? I said, you can apply now, but you're not going to that meeting unless you sue them, because they're taking 14 months on advanced paroles.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's absolutely insane. Same with the EADs. Now, what's funny is, and Jesse, I was looking at this in the context of Uniting for Ukraine, as I'm preparing some other work that we're doing there, is they don't have a separate category in their EAD drop-down menu for Uniting for Ukraine. They've got a refugee drop-down menu, but they're not treating these folks as refugees.
Right.
So I don't think you can use that drop-down menu for that. So their non-drop-down menu, the others, is 8 to 14 months, depending on where your case is, to get an EAD. United for Ukraine's only good for 2 years. So in any event, if you got EAD in any category, EAD delays, sign up. We're going to have some fun. We're going to have some fun here. Now, Greg, the last thing I said we'd talk about is the election and the politics and what this means going forward for us. For immigration. So tell, what's your take? We found out that Democrats now continue in control of the Senate, will likely not have the House.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, first of all, I think the politics of immigration just improved a lot on Tuesday, because largely because the blame for the Republicans' poor performance on Tuesday night is Trumpism, and the anti-immigration movement is, a key part of that. So there's already been, we saw this in 2012, and then they didn't follow their own advice. But there was this post-mortem the Republicans did in 2012 where they front and center admitted that their anti-immigration positions were bad for the party, bad for their future. And
wait a second, I thought all Latinos were voting Republican.
Yeah, so actually, there was a lot of data that came out on the on immigrant voters, particularly Asians and Latinos. And there was no drop off except in Florida, where there had been looks like sort of reverted back to the old Cuban Republican alliance, and probably Venezuelans also were voting Republican. But outside of Florida, Hispanics overwhelmingly, like by about a 2-to-1 margin, voted for Democrats, which is pretty, people forget that George Bush got like 42% of the Latino vote, and McCain did well with that group as well. So it hasn't always been that way, but that's a problem. It's also a problem for Asian voters who voted even in higher numbers for Democrats. So, those are two major demographics that are off the table. And then, of course, they didn't do particularly well with younger voters and women. But what that probably means is that, when they take a hard look at it, is caravans and the wall and all that kind of rhetoric didn't do anything in Arizona, where obviously the two big losses there in the governor's race and the Senate race, and barely are hanging on to a couple of congressional seats that are still sort of in play right now, the 6th and the 1st districts there. So that was front and center as far as immigration being Republicans putting that at the top of the agenda. Colorado is another one on there where it was a blue wave in Colorado, and in Michigan and other states where they played the immigration card unsuccessfully. So that should improve politics somewhat. Then you have the House right now. It's going to land somewhere probably between 219 and 222 for the Republicans, probably. That will be the closest partisan divide since the Civil War. And there have been only a couple times where it was that close. One was during World War I, and what ended up happening there is that the Democrats were able to pull in some third-party folks, so it was actually a little bit wider by the time the Congress was seated. And then in 1930, during the midterm for the Hoover administration, it was a 1-seat margin for the Democrats, or the Republicans, and then like 14 members of Congress died between the election and the and the swearing in of Congress, which used to happen in March, not in January. So there was a little bit more time, but still.
What was COVID going on? That's crazy.
I don't know, but the Democrats ended up having a decent majority by the time that all the bodies were counted. But that's the only other thing that sort of historically that we have to look at here is like in the 1850s, I think it was, where there were like 40 ballots for the speaker. They could not get a majority, and they had to change and that's going to happen because there's no way that Kevin McCarthy is going to get a majority.
I don't know. Marjorie Taylor Greene's getting behind.
Yeah, but meantime,
Kevin
somebody
Bacon.
like Bacon in Omaha already said he's considering voting for a Democrat rather than McCarthy for that's on there. So they're going to have a hard time, I think, getting the majority, every Republican. They have to get every single one. Plus, they have to actually show up on the floor. So if somebody is like having a medical procedure or COVID or whatever,
isn't Nancy? Well, Nancy, I guess, is only the speaker till the new term ends, and then
but
the rules reset.
So the way they resolved it that year, where they had like the 40 or 50 votes unsuccessfully, is they had to change the rules to allow plurality. And when that happens, it could be, and that you could have a minority speaker. And our friend Matt Galati was telling us that they had the same issue in Pennsylvania a couple of years ago, where they ended up having a speaker from the other party because they couldn't get it together to vote for somebody in there. So we don't know yet who the Speaker of the House is. Now, the reason why that's important is, first of all, there's two issues that we have to look at. One is it may be that McCarthy has to make a deal with Nancy Pelosi in order to be able to have for somebody on the Republican side to be able to secure enough votes to win. What would a deal look like? If I were at the negotiating table, I would demand equal seats on committees. So 50-50. It's that close. It should, that the Republicans don't get the edge, that it should be 50-50. Co-chairs instead of a ranking member, so that each side has to basically, gets the same seat at the table. And most importantly, that they Republicans don't get to control the agenda for which bills get sent to the floor. And if that happens, Chuck, you could see immigration legislation moving because you only have to get a small number of Republicans on board if something like that happens. And I would say the odds are better now with this makeup since we're sort of an unprecedented territory right now, that you could see some kind of power sharing deal in order to be able to have anything moving on the agenda.
I think the wild card here, Greg, though, is the desire of Kevin McCarthy to be speaker. What part of his soul?
He's going to need Democrats to do that. They tried to get. They approached Henry Cuellar, the Texas.
Yeah, I saw that. To switch parties.
To switch parties. He doesn't have to switch parties, but he'd be a pariah if he voted for them. But the fact that he publicly stated that he was approached and he's declined is a bad sign for Kevin McCarthy.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
On there. The other thing on the Senate side that's really fascinating to me is the filibuster, because let's just say you can get a bill out of the House on immigration, and it gets over to the Senate. It's bills have been dying in the Senate over the last 2 years because they can't get 60 votes.
No. It's because they won't vote. Let's be clear. They haven't voted on jack squat.
I understand that, but they don't have 10 Republicans in the Senate that are going to vote on anything except maybe the Healthcare Workforce Resilience Act, and that's a different story. But if we're talking sort of about broader immigration issues, but the Democrats picked up a seat, maybe if Herschel Walker loses,
maybe. Bite your tongue, guy.
Herschel Walker. When Herschel Walker loses, there will be 50.
Write a check. Write a check now.
There will be 51 Democrats. Now there are 2 Democrats the Democrats can change the filibuster rule with just a majority. I mean, with 50 votes on there. But there have been 2 Democrats that have been, no, we're not changing it. One is Joe Manchin, and the other one is Kristen Sinema from Arizona. Manchin is not going to do anything to change that. Kristen Sinema, though, is the interesting one because Biden now has some options for Kristen Sinema if he would like, because there was a governor's election in Arizona this week, and there is now a Democratic governor for the first time in a long time in Arizona. I think Janet Napolitano was the last time there was a Democratic governor there. And what that means, and I actually looked this up, is the governor of Arizona could if something happened to the senator, the governor picks the replacement until the next election, which would be 2024, and she's up anyway in 2024. So my
and she's not winning re-election.
No,
well, she's
my
not.
My theory is she is going to be offered a cabinet position or an ambassadorship, but a cabinet position. She's actually got some good records, like on issues like environmental issues and things like that, where she probably would be just fine as far as that goes. And Ruben Gallega is probably the guy who's going to replace her. Hello, doggy. Gallega is a congressman that who's the one that's probably going to primary her, and so we could see the filibuster gone if that happened. And it's a question of whether she would want that or not. And Biden could make it happen and Kristen Sinema could make it happen if she decides that she wants to take a promotion, which being added to the cabinet is considered ultimately. That's why they call you for the rest of your life secretary so-and-so instead of senator so-and-so, because it's considered a promotion on there. So if Biden gave her, the interior secretary.
Oh, no, she's not getting rid of a Native American interior secretary to put.
Well, all right, give her EPA. I don't care what you give her. Give her something. But the
EPA, put her in charge of the EPA. There you go.
Probably would take it. Or some cushy, give her London or Rome or someplace, Paris or someplace that you'd be the ambassador there, which is super nice, and then she can be a lobbyist after that. But that's how you solve the filibuster problem, with one phone call. I mean, honestly, that's so it's not, if you could get a bill out of the House, you can get it passed in the Senate, if you do that. So that's that's my solution for the filibuster. Biden did say after the election that immigration will be back at the top of the agenda. It'll be the first thing he introduces. I know that some.
Has he let Susan Rice know that yet?
Well, apparently he got her permission. But that's what the claim is. So we will see how it all shakes out. Now, during the other thing the last thing I wanted to add on politics is the lame duck session. So we're entering a very interesting period for the next couple of weeks in Congress, where there's this little opportunity after an election and before the next Congress is inaugurated, where people, especially people that are leaving Congress, or people that know that they're at the maximum period of time away, when people are paying attention to Thanksgiving and Christmas, they're not paying attention to anything Congress is doing, where you can actually get less popular things done I should say they'd be popular with Democrats, but things that might not be as popular with Republicans.
It's where all the immigration stuff's passed for the last 30 years.
So the two candidates that we're seeing for that is, one is the Afghan Adjustment Act, which actually does have a lot of bipartisan support. There are Republicans that want to see that bill pass, which would essentially create a green card category for all the Afghans who've the 80,000 or so that have come in over the last year. And then DACA is the other one that would be a prime candidate to deal with in the lame duck, where that's going to be a very tricky issue for Republicans when this, the last thing they want is the Supreme Court declaring DACA to be illegal and then them having to deal with the fallout. They know that Obama creating the DACA program is probably why Obama got reelected in 2012. That was June 2012. That was the timing of that was very specific on there. And that's that being said, I can see a DREAM Act bill getting some traction in the lame duck just to probably deal with just the DACA population. I'm not guessing something super expansive, but what they could do, sort of a minimal DACA bill would just basically saying that it would legislate DACA for that particular population, and that's it. But that's still significant if they can solve it. If they can do that, that's a down payment on what they need to do. But that's what I see probably.
There's also a farm bill that if there's going to be anything as well that Republicans would support, the farm workers.
That's also bipartisan.
Yeah, but I hate to get anybody's hopes up because you need 10 Republicans. 10. Right.
And we'll see what McConnell wants to do on that, because McConnell basically calls the shots about when filibuster is going to happen. And McConnell, some people say he's going to retire. And he's not going to, and that he doesn't have the votes right now to be the minority leader.
That's crap. Nobody's even announced. They're not going to make Rick Scott the majority leader. The guy's a freaking loon boon.
I don't know. I'm not as certain about that. And which is also interesting because there's a Democratic governor in Kentucky. If he retired from the Senate, which he's talking about just retiring altogether, not just not running.
I don't see McConnell retiring. I don't see that happening.
Do you want to hear my 30 seconds?
Yes.
Yeah. What's your theory?
My theory is in the next 2 years we are going to see the fourth branch become very active in all things immigration, in the regulatory space. I think there's a lot of rules and regulations this administration wants to get done in very short order. They've already put out their agenda. I think H-1B is in the crosshairs. I think a new wage rule is no brainer. It's happening. And I don't know if those are positive or negative because I don't see the rules before me, but I can tell you that you're going to have
we will be suing if they are not.
You have kind of this fight, this fight within the own Democratic Party between kowtowing to labor and kowtowing to, well, they don't kowtow to immigration. Well, I'm going to say that. But
the thing is, labor is like half immigrants. So it's
yeah, but they've never done. I'll tell you, I'm just, they buy the narrative that somehow that
because the SEIU is like all immigrants.
Totally. Yeah.
And the politics have really changed with the labor movement on immigration.
Well, no,
they're not.
Jesse, I might agree with you if the Supreme Court wasn't about to do away with the entire regulatory canon.
Well, that's why I was bringing it home to where litigation will go, because I think the era of deference is over. Chevron is dead. Tell me differently, but you have to also understand that you have two things at play. Article 3 judges are going to tell you what the plain law says, even when it's ambiguous, because that's the easiest way to do it for them. It's an aggregation of power, and they want power, especially this SCOTUS. And, then you're going to have kind of the great questions, or this is a serious question, so we don't really care. We're going to do it ourselves. But it all is about Article 3 and the SCOTUS becoming, kind of the beacons for freedom, as they've already been. I think that you have that fourth state administrative agency up against this regime, and I think a lot of policy will be still made in the courts. Absolutely 100%.
I don't know how all 15 members of the Supreme Court are going to rule on that in the future.
But the last prediction I'm going to make, as far as relating to Jesse, is that the one area that they have in the statute that where the judges can't do that much, and it is with TPS on there, and I see that being very aggressively used over the next year or two to do a lot of what they haven't been able to do with deferred action on there. They don't have, the courts don't have, you can't do diddly squat to say that a TPS designation, it's pure discretion on the administration's part when they use it.
It's the anti-212F.
Yeah.
Right. It's the executive authority, and I would love to fight that.
You have to show that there's some safety, where it's disaster. Right. There's it's so broad that it's that you can just say a high crime rate in a country is enough to justify, which you could do with Mexico. You could do any of the countries basically right now that are that are in the news. They could use TPS, and they've already been using TPS quite a bit more than they had in previous administrations.
I mean, I think the key word though is and maybe they'll do it, but we've been so disappointed. There are so many things that could have happened already. Where does the backbone come now? Do they get emboldened now in the next for a re-election because they see the benefit that the immigration played in the midterms? Maybe it changes their mind and they focus.
I would only say look back at the Obama administration, which was dismal on immigration for the first half of the Obama administration, and then from 2014 to 2016, they woke up. And
they woke up because he didn't want to be called the deportation president, which is
right. But I'm just saying that what a president has done previously is not always an indicator of what they're going to do after a certain period of time. With Trump, that might have been the case, but there is some precedent for a president really kind of changing dramatically.
Can I ask my final question? Because we've already seen some shakeup at DHS. Do you think that our buddy Blinken is going to take a long walk off a short plank?
I think he loves being Secretary of State and is going to stay there till
I don't think he's. Yeah, I don't think he's going anywhere because immigration doesn't drive at all. The Secretary of State,
forgotten redheaded stepsister
on there. If they think he's doing a decent job on the diplomacy part of it, then he's staying. And right now, I'm not so sure that they want to send that signal out that they have issues with that part of it. That's probably one of the brighter spots for the Biden administration is on the foreign policy front. On there, he's seen at least as being competent. So I'm not seeing Blinken going anywhere. The only thing is, I will say that traditionally, when a president, after a midterm, you might see some initial cabinet shakeup, but that's usually only if the president got hammered, where you would see some of that. And Biden, I think, is looking, pretty happy with with what just happened. So I'm not seeing much of a shakeup unless somebody is really a problem. Now, I don't know if Magnus at CBP was a problem. I don't think we still know sort of the total story on that. But I'm doubting probably we're going to see a lot of changes, even if we would like to. Although one thing that would be of note, that's one last politics change. I keep saying it's one last, but the one consequence of the 51 votes instead of 50 votes is that in the Senate, when they were 50-50, they did have an even number of seats on their committees.
This is a big deal. They couldn't get anything out of committee.
Right. So it was very difficult to move bills out of committee. It was very difficult to move nominations to the floor because of 50-50 split. Now the Democrats will have a 1-seat majority on each of the on the committees, which does mean that it will be a much faster process to approve judges and approve appointments on there, which are not subject to the filibuster, either one of them. So that is that might mean that they are more willing to replace people than they might have been. So if they want to fire somebody, they're going to have to worry a little bit less about how long it's going to take to replace that person because they don't have to really, they can get anybody they want approved essentially.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, I could be, I'm pretty sure that Warnock sits on the Judiciary Committee. I know Ossoff does. That's where all this stuff originates in the Senate. Get out your pocketbook and your wallet or your checkbook and make a donation to Warnock for Senate. Thank you. This is your political announcement today.
I've given him before.
And plus, I will tell you, I know Raphael Warnock. He is a good human being. He's just a flat out
Not like
good
Herschel.
human being. And he does not have brain damage. So, I mean, I think they should both be criteria to be used as senators.
Yeah, there's been a few concussions, I'm sure.
All right. It's great to be with you guys all this week. And we'll be back next Tuesday. I'll be live tomorrow at 1. Greg, are you live this week?
No, sir.
No. Zach, are you guys live this week on Thursday?
I don't think we're live this week. No, I think
Not
we're
this week. Hey, Jesse, are you doing any lives or not?
It's by appointment only.
By appointment only. Well, I'll be live tomorrow. Giving my update on politics. Till next week, we'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.